Welcome to Ladies-in-Law, where real-world advice meets professional wisdom and empowerment in realms of law and business. Your hosts, Lisa Goucher, Dawn Smith, and Kelly Raymond, bring you innovative strategies, practical guidance, and inspirational stories. Join us as we inspire and support women to thrive in traditionally male-dominated fields. We're here to promote inclusivity and provide practical advice for success. Hi, Lisa here with Dawn and Kelly. Today's topic is the myth of work-life balance.
It is a myth, right?
I think it is.
It's so funny, this shift in attitude I have started seeing in younger people where work-life balance is just supposed to be inherent in your job description. And I just, it's a struggle to try to maintain some semblance of work-life balance. And it's so interesting because to me, it's one of those things that you work really hard and then maybe one day you'll have some semblance of balance.
That's the whole thing. I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, Lisa and I were talking a minute ago, when somebody comes in to interview and they tell Curtis and I that work-life balance is very important, both of us just kind of cringe.
That person doesn't get the job, am I right?
That's right. I mean,
I
it really
think the
is.
interview's done at that point,
Yes.
right?
Pretty much.
I don't know, I hate to pick on the younger generation. I don't know if it's necessarily a generational thing or just depends on the person, but there is this sort of new shift of prioritizing work-life balance. And not that that's a bad thing, but I think you have to work really hard first to try to maybe one day get some sort of balance and to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You don't just get balance inherent in the job description.
And how can we convey that, right? Like how can we tell people that are, well, first of all, don't tell a potential employer that work-life balance is important to you, even if it is.
Right.
I think that there's a different way to talk about that. You can talk about the culture of the company. You can talk about, how the company, if they do things that are fun for the employees, if it's important to work hard and play hard, that kind of thing. I mean, I think that that's the right way to approach it if you're going for an interview or trying to get a job. But you got to work your butt off.
You do.
Like, you got to work harder than everybody else
and then
to move up
keep
quicker.
Working a little more.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it kind of goes hand in hand with you got to pay your dues. Like whatever industry you're in and in the legal industry, you've got to pay your dues. You've got to get in there, earn your place, and in order to do that, you are going to be working hard. And so the balance may be off, but it's not off forever.
Right.
That may just be the season that you're in.
Right.
So just talking about it and looking at it from perspective of buckets, like what are your buckets? You've got your physical, meaning keeping yourself healthy, working out. Your spiritual, there's some sort of higher being. The emotional and mental, where you are always learning, being emotionally happy and healthy. And then finally, your financial bucket. And so initially, when you're starting out in a career, like it's all about that financial bucket. Wouldn't you agree?
It's pretty empty at the beginning.
Yeah, I know. And so
It's
that's
a very
why,
scary bucket
how are
at
you
the
gonna
beginning.
How are you going to fill it, right?
Well, I'll say when I first started my company, I was a little bit delusional thinking, gosh, I'm just going to be really busy right away. And it was a couple of months and I really got a little bit of awakening, like, oh, you actually have to be busying yourself and then the work follows almost, right?
It's about the hustle.
Yes,
right? You got to hustle.
1,000%.
And kind of thinking about it too is if you're starting in a new industry, you have to learn. So I guess you can have work-life balance, but it's going to take you 10 years to learn something as opposed to 2.
Right.
You have to pace yourself. I think that it's possible to put things ahead of work, but if you're in a profession and you're trying to be somebody that can accomplish something great, if you want to accomplish something great, then you got to put that time in to learn. And some people learn quicker than others, I guess. It took me time.
Sure.
But you've got to put that time in if you want to be great.
It's so true. And we're not shitting all over work-life balance. It is important, Lisa, like you were talking about the buckets, it is important to take care of yourself so that you can be good at the work that you're doing, right? If you are burnt out and stressed out and, you know, your physical, mental, emotional well-being is teetering, it's probably going to affect how hard you're able to work. Truly talented people can kind of compartmentalize that, but at some point it's going to catch up with you. I do think it's very important to create boundaries, and that sort of facilitates helping to maintain a work-life balance. For example, if I'm not in trial and a lawyer emails me at midnight and it's not important, I'm not going to respond at midnight.
What?
I'm just not.
Kelly.
I'm just not. Right? Which
Yeah.
actually, that makes me think of the first jury that we ever picked. Dawn and I are picking a jury together. We are in the middle of nowhere, San Saba, Texas. I couldn't even tell you where it is on a map to this day. And we had been working prior to getting to the middle of nowhere. We were staying at this really cute little boutique hotel.
It's a great town.
We had the
It is.
whole hotel to ourselves. And it was sort of like a dorm room. Like the doors are open, but Dawn and I just barely know each other. And here I hear a little tap on my door. It's like 2 a.m. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
I'm really bad about boundaries. So I just say, ask all the folks that work with me. I'm really bad about boundaries. I don't know. I need to do better. I need to do better when it comes to understanding those needs, those underlying needs, those buckets.
Well, so let me push back on that, because I think whatever your boundaries are, if that works for you, that's great. If you want to email people at 2 a.m., that's great. I think it's about understanding other people's boundaries. I don't think you should limit your boundaries just because somebody else might be annoyed to get an email at 2 a.m. But it took me a long time to kind of get to the point where it was okay to say no, or I'm not going to respond to that right away. This is not an emergency. I don't need to take time out of, you know, if I'm doing something social, I don't need to. I think it's prioritizing if it's important, right? But creating boundaries for yourself that it's okay if you want to work crazy hours. That doesn't mean I want to.
So along those lines, though, if you send somebody a message and you're working with somebody and they respond immediately, wow.
They're my person.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
are my person. I'm just going to say, because, and actually I think the thing that started it all, like back in the day, that has created really a monster, and I think it's been reeled back in some, is the BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Because once we had the BlackBerry,
You know, I never
we
had a
could,
BlackBerry.
you're too young, we could literally work 24/7. Like I could sit on an airplane and crank out all the emails, and then when the plane landed, they all just sent.
That's right.
It was an amazing thing as far as getting things done. I mean, you say an amazing thing, but I was just able to really work on the go.
Sure.
With the BlackBerry. And that did create that environment at my previous company where everybody worked like that.
And it was kind of expected.
Oh, it was 100% expected.
It was expected, and then it took a turn later when the wage loss overtime issue came in,
Mm-hmm.
and then we realized we were doing it wrong. Like, you cannot expect people to answer 24/7, your staff. You just can't expect it. You have to, there are laws related to that. And so I learned through litigation, and we made changes.
Interesting.
You know? So we had to implement totally new systems so that people weren't responding, you know, like they would take, whoever was on call would have the BlackBerry versus everybody having a BlackBerry and everybody responding if a message was sent.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so
My
fast
hu-
forward to today.
So my husband always says that the worst thing he ever did was say, honey, you should get a BlackBerry. He says it's the worst thing.
It's
And
hard
then-
to turn it off.
It is, but you know what? I mean, if you can be connected and have those boundaries like you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about, right? I think that that's what we're talking about nowadays when we say the myth of work-life balance, right? I
And-
mean, I don't know. You have to be available to your job if that's your passion, if that is your, you know, I advocate 100% for choosing a profession that you love. Choose something that you actually want to do.
So it doesn't feel like work.
Yes.
Right.
Because if it's just a job, then it's just a job. But if you want to accomplish something, then you've got to figure out how to be available. Be that person.
Yeah, it is. It's a balance, right? Trying to figure out and I really think the work-life balance only comes after you've busted your ass, right? You have to grind, you have to put the hours in, and then you can kind of give yourself permission to say, okay, this is not an emergency. I don't need to respond this late. Or, we love, my husband and I will do this every couple of weeks. We'll say no phones. We'll not look at our phones for an entire evening. We'll just put them away, and it's nice. For me, it gives me a little bit of a recharge to be able to then the next day go do a 10-hour mock trial and interact with mock jurors,
and truly plug in.
Exactly.
Because you had that reprieve.
Because if I don't, then I'm if I'm burning it at every single end, then it's just not going to be as quality for me.
Yes. Well, and then a different component to it that I feel like we need to touch on, work-life balance. Like, I think women really do excel at it because we can turn it on and turn it off. I mean, if you're at the office and you've got something going on, you can put out that fire, and then you can get a message from your kid's school, and you can like step off of that elevator and turn that back on and take care of your kids and then go back in and finish your work. I mean, I think women just intuitively have the ability to balance, even though it may not be the desired way that you balance, but when you are a working mother, you've got to figure out how you're going to still take care of the kids and do all the things.
I mean, my kids have heard me talk to clients, talk to other lawyers. I mean, my son and daughter both have heard really everything. And one really wants to be a lawyer, and the other one does not.
They got the best of
does not at all. I mean, he could care less about being a lawyer because it's demanding. It's really demanding to be in this business and working with lawyers that are demanding. So
well, I think it's important to just check in with yourself. And if you feel like there is an area that is suffering, right, whether it's your relationship or your physical well-being, if you feel like there's one of the buckets is suffering, right, you've got to be able to kind of gut check and say, okay, do you know what I started doing last year? I started taking Friday mornings off and not booking anything on a Friday morning so I could take a horseback riding lesson.
So now we know.
Yes. That's why we can't get a hold of her.
And I just, and I don't feel bad about it because before I had kind of decided to let me just not schedule anything, then it became too flexible and I was moving it or I was canceling, and it was something that was very important to me. And if you don't prioritize it, just like calendaring a podcast or calendaring anything for work, yes, if you don't prioritize it, then it could easily fall by the wayside. And so that was something that I wanted to prioritize. It's good for my mental health. It's good for my physical health. And I don't feel bad about it because that's my time, right? That's my couple hours where of course I get off and I'm checking my phone and reading all the emails and returning calls on the drive. But you make it work in order to balance your buckets.
I think you've got to have white space.
What do you mean by that?
White space. So it's a concept because if you don't have certain things on your calendar, right, because we have all these colors on our calendar nowadays, you want to book out white space because that's the time where you can come up with new ideas, when you have just time to actually think about things differently as opposed to being focused on one thing or another. So you have prioritized a certain time for you, but that is very similar to actually blocking out hours together during a certain day so that you can just brainstorm about building your business or building relationships or solving problems that are really complicated. You've got to have that white space.
Yeah, that's great advice. I never thought about it like that. But you do have to. A friend of mine recently had a book published. She does medical illustrations, and it's great. And she would just calendar herself 30 minutes a week to write and try to contribute to what she was working on. And if you don't calendar it, it's will just fall by the wayside. It's hard to make sure that you're balancing without the calendar.
Exactly.
Yeah. Through the course of time, work-life balance has evolved from kids, busy, extracurricular, my husband has been really wonderful in that aspect of it, to now being an empty nester. And I got to tell you what, I have come to the conclusion. I have no hobbies. All I do is work. But I mean, I take such pleasure
Right.
from the work. But do you feel like you should have a hobby? You've got one.
But it's so funny that you say that, because about a year and a half, and I grew up riding horses, but I had gotten out of it, hadn't done it for years. About 2 years ago, I was talking with my husband, and I'm like, I don't have a hobby. I try to read. I don't read as much as I used to. I felt like I was just always working, and I wanted to flex some different muscles, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important to make sure that whether it be a hobby or just taking time for yourself, right? Just to make sure. I think it's hard to do the best job that you can do if you are struggling in, your mental health or your physical health, or you're not truly taking care of spending time with your significant other or your friends, right? I always find that when I make sure to spend time with friends or, make quality time with somebody I haven't seen in a while, I feel recharged after that. And I feel like then I'm able to do the other things that I need to do better.
Isn't that funny too? Because, I don't know, sometimes I'm making plans with friends and I'm like, oh.
So many other things I could be doing.
Really, do I need to take that? But then, especially, when I get together with you guys, because we haven't been able to see each other that much, but when I get together with you guys, I'm always like, I'm so glad.
And we have like 8 more ideas and things we want to do,
Exactly.
right?
I think that's my hobby. Like, I think getting together with girlfriends and community, it's totally my hobby. And, Dawn, if you'll remember, a couple years ago, we weren't getting together. And so then I was like, Dawn, we can do this once a quarter.
You
Right.
did, that's
Yeah.
right.
And I was like, that year
Yeah.
we saw each other. That's just 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we made it. I think we only made 3.
So I think we got 4 in a row, but for that specific year,
Yeah.
you're right. I think we only did 3 quarters, and then we got to the Christmas quarter, and
But,
it didn't happen.
What you said a minute ago about really enjoying what you do, right? When you love what you do, and that to me is the most important thing, that if you are thinking about starting a business, or if you've started a business, you've got to make sure that you love what you do. Yes. Because then it's always going to be, there are going to be times where it feels like a grind and you just are run down or you're tired. But if you love it, it's never going to feel quite as hard as if it's just a job. If you are just working in a job, you should be starting your own company, something that you are passionate about. Doing something that you love makes it not feel like work, right?
Yeah, and it's scary.
It's terrifying.
It is.
If you
It's scary.
love what you're doing, it's passion. If you don't love what you're doing, it's stress.
Yes. Yeah.
So
And
so
be-
profound, Lisa
Yeah.
Goucher.
and being able to have control over your own destiny.
Oh, yes.
To a
Isn't that
larger
the best,
extent?
The best thing about owning your own business is there's nobody telling you
Yes.
where to go,
Calling
what to
you,
do.
get up.
Yes,
Make
right.
things happen.
Yep. I have actually found, though, so I worked at another consulting firm before I started my own, and it was a grind. It was very busy, working really long days and long weeks and long years, but I loved it, and so it was fine, right? But when it's yourself and you're doing it for yourself, I found that I work more. Right?
Absolutely. Sure.
It's harder to turn it off when it's you and you've got to get things done. And if you're enjoying what you do, then it's easier to keep grinding it out.
It is, and I mean, like we're talking about work-life balance and the myth.
Yeah.
The woman, the myth, the legend. I think you just have to choose where you are, right? Like which season you're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's an ebb and a flow.
It is, and whether or not you are in a place where you feel like you can grow. Like, is this, even if you don't own your company, is this a place that I can grow and learn so that maybe I'll have more options available? Figure that out. If you're not, find something else. Find something else.
Well said.
Yeah.
Tell me one thing or a couple of things, I'll start with you, Kelly, that you think could be implemented to help someone else with work-life balance.
Yeah, I think that, if you've got a hobby or something that you like to do, maybe go for a walk, maybe it's binge watch, trash TV, making sure that you find a little time in every day for yourself, right? Maybe it's only 15 minutes. Sometimes I hop on the Peloton and it's a 15-minute class and that's all I have, right? But I feel better after. Finding little things to do every day, I think is super important to make sure that you're kind of checking in, you're recharging. What do you like to do, Dawn?
I think going outside is really important. I think just being in the office, talking to people constantly, just hustling. If you just take a moment just to walk outside, I mean,
that's easy to do. It's not hard.
It is, and it just kind of just to reset and take a deep breath. Even if listen to a little bit of music, it's just to get your mind refreshed and refocused. I think that goes a long way.
I started meditating during COVID.
I did too.
And I love it. And it's something that I don't do as much as I was during COVID because I had a little bit more free time then, no jury trials. But it's something that I just feel, even if it's just for 2 minutes and you just kind of quiet your mind and, or sometimes I can't quiet my mind and I'm thinking about the things that I need to do, but at least I'm not being bothered by anything else for just a couple of minutes. What do you like to do, Lisa?
Well, we have a theme here because I feel exactly the same way. Grounding or breath work.
That picture of you and your granddaughter with her little
Out
feet
in
on
the
the grass.
grass.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Those things, bringing yourself into nature, the meditation, like I really struggle. I wish I could get better at meditation because I can't shut my mind off.
It takes a lot of practice.
That's a serious discipline.
Yes.
But another really common thing that I do is, you can't be hateful and grateful at the same time. So if you're in a situation that it's just like you're building up and you're not feeling good and it's just not going in a good direction, doesn't matter where I'm at. I could be in the car, in office, or wherever. I just start rattling off what I'm grateful for. Grateful for my husband, for my children. Like I just rattle off the very same things
because
it gives you a mind shift and puts you in a place so that then you can proceed without that sense of, anxiety or anger or whatever isn't going your way.
That's so good.
It's such an easy technique.
It's an easy thing to do. And then that just made me think of the freedom that you get when you own your own business. Because when you started to describe sort of feeling angsty and I have had that feeling working with particular clients and after several years of working really hard, I was not turning down business early on. But I'm now to the point where if I'm working with somebody who is terrible to work with, I'm just going to say no.
Life's
no
too
thanks,
short, right?
Right? To be able to kind of have the freedom to choose. I want to surround myself with people that have this work ethic and are kind and want to be good people and not surround yourself with people that are not that nice sometimes. Sometimes we have no control over that and we've got to be around the meanies. But
tapping on your door at 2 a.m.
That was great. That's such a great memory. I look back on that little boutique hotel. It was like a college dorm.
It was great. It was a great experience.
Oh my goodness. I love everything that we shared today and looking forward to the next one. And we will
see you next time.
Yeah,
see you soon.
Definitely. Thank you. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Ladies in Law. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to shake things up in law and business. Don't forget to hit subscribe and let us know what you think. Spread the word and share this podcast with your network. Follow us on socials for all the behind-the-scenes fun and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep rocking it, keep breaking the mold, and as always, keep aspiring to inspire.